should do it.
Oh,
I should do it in a more ominous voice. Hello.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Hello. Welcome. Episode 666.
Ha, ha.
Yeah. Evil laughter. Hello. Yes, 666. It's finally here. We're not able to time it for Halloween, which was very unfortunate.
Yeah, I still am wearing my Halloween attire.
Yeah, we'll take what we can get. Susan here, Brain Candy Podcast. How are you, Sarah?
I'm doing well. I am really excited because it's snowing over here. But I'm really not excited because my ankles still need some rest before.
How can you tell?
Skiing on Thursday because I can't run. I can't do anything that requires me to actively use it.
Because it's painful or weak or what?
Both.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, it's real stupid. So I have another month, and I just want to be out there and having fun, but it's really dumb.
How long do you think you have to wait? Till Christmas or something?
Yeah, maybe a month.
Really?
I'm trying to strengthen it. I'm doing my exercises, doing the things, but yeah, it's fine.
Time heals all
wounds. Back to normal. Time. Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
That is right. But that is the only thing I have to complain about. Everything else is amazing and wonderful, and life is great.
Good. My God, that is not the vibe we want for 666.
I know. I was trying to bring a more morbid one, and my ankle's busted, destroyed.
Destroyed.
No,
yeah.
I can't. How are you, Suze?
Yes. Well, I'm still recovering. I feel like from our whirlwind Chicago adventure. We had a hilarious moment that I keep reliving where we got a notice from the Airbnb that we had to bring
this was funny.
the chairs in. It was on the 18th floor of a building, and we had to bring the chairs in from the balcony because of, Windy City situation. It was a wind advisory or something. And
they weren't kidding when they called the Windy City.
Yeah. What is that, the lake effect or something? What is that?
52 miles an hour? I have no clue. It was news to me that Chicago was on the water.
Really?
Yeah, I knew there was a river, but I didn't know. It's not my proudest moment.
Well, you know what? Live and learn.
And I was like, "What's that?" I know it's not an ocean. People were like, "Well,
yeah, it's a lake, and it is pretty great.
Might well be an ocean."
Yes, and it must be that lake that causes the wind because it really was we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, we were on the 18th floor, and they said these could blow off. Could you imagine walking below and getting hit by a chair?
It seems like when you pick it up, that means I could blow off. You know what I mean? This seems like a danger zone.
Like a small dog, definitely getting picked up.
Doomed. Right. Yes. But it was very funny because I was in my jammies by then, I think.
Yes, we were all in our jammies. Well, we were not in jammies. We were in, they were jammies, but they were all the matching T-shirts that our wonderful Brainiacs made for Susie, in support of Susie for the comedy show.
Yeah.
They also got for Eli and Adam, Lincoln, me. We were all decked out.
So cute.
And so, of course, we all had to put them on and take photos.
Yeah.
So we all went to bed in our Susie PJs.
So cute. But everything's funnier with Sarah. She just invites hilarity, and that is just a good time. Good times were had by all.
We managed to find it wherever we go.
And
so it was great.
Yes. Okay. Let's get started here. I guess I'll start with Satanic Panic because that's what we were going to talk about. Let me see if I can find the article. I was reading about it, and I mean, I am pretty familiar with it because I grew up in the evangelical church, and so Satanic Panic was a really big deal in the 80s, and I wondered if you were even touched by any of this nonsense.
It's funny because it almost feels like my mom and dad enjoyed the Hollywood novelty side of it.
What side is that?
So my mom worked on the movie Teen Witch, which kind of had a little bit of that, this was like a time where Poltergeist came out and all of these movies like centered around like, if you contact the dead, like, oh, bad stuff will happen. Or like, it's like Satan and like witches and seances and stuff like that. And I think so much of that was maybe, well, you tell me. Let me ask you this before I come up with Sarah's Got a Theory over here. What like piqued our interest in that? Why did this become a thing? What was happening socially or like?
The article that I was reading was in Vox, and it was like about the history of Satanic Panic, and they proclaimed that the genesis was kind of like the Charles Manson cult thing, where it was like these seemingly nice kids became murderers just at the behest of this madman who never actually killed anyone. And so it made people start becoming interested in like how your mind can be controlled by other people or other things. I don't know. I don't know. I think that was the beginning. And I feel like there were a lot of horror movies, and like the movies that came out around that time or right after that kind of played into that. Yeah, and I think they're arguing that inspired some of those movies.
100%. And my parents were the ones making them.
So do you think they had a sense of like, this is all baloney?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Because I remember when I was very young, so this was like 8 or probably 5, not very, very young, but like 5 through 10, when like, this was like mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of effort put into Halloween at my house that then went away later. Mm-hmm. But it was like, it felt different, like Halloween part. And not just because I was a kid. It wasn't just that like, oh yeah, when we're younger, we have like a memory of it. It's different. I look at photos and, the parents tell stories about it. And it was like, for me, it was like the late 80s where it seemed like my parents and their friends were really into that as a theme for like Halloween and parties and
well, I mean, you've
stuff
framed
like
it
that
before, and I think accurately, that when your mom works in wardrobe and your dad works in set design, I mean, Halloween is pretty much the perfect holiday for your family.
Perfect holiday.
Yeah.
So it felt like they were into these kind of stories. They worked in it's like Poltergeist and Teen Witch and all these like kind of horror movies where.
When did you first start watching horror movies though?
Young.
And you didn't mind. You loved it.
Yeah. I can remember. Yeah. It was my dad's like best friend, and my friend growing up. He had a daughter. My friend growing up, we would watch horror movies but it was always explained to us very clearly how they did it and that it was fake. Mm-hmm. That was a bit. Mm-hmm. And I recently watched Hellraiser. I had never seen Hellraiser before, but I watched that this Halloween, and like the very first one, I think it came out in 1987. The special effects are so bad that it's very easy to explain to a child and get them to understand that this isn't real.
Yeah.
I don't think you could do that. I was thinking about that in watching this. I was like, I remember being younger and watching these like horror movies and it being like, oh, that's like obviously corn syrup that's red and da-da-da. And like they've made sure to explain those kind of things.
Okay.
But I don't think you'd be able to do that with some of the special effects stuff that we have and like the CGI that we have now.
Yeah, now it's way more realistic.
It's too hard to say, like, you could say, it's made on the computer just like a cartoon. I guess that's helpful. Mm-hmm. But that was what did it for me. That's what made it okay, is because we would go to set and see these things getting made. Like I remember seeing some like headless special effects thing at one of the jobs my dad did. And then I was like, oh, all that stuff.
Yeah, you saw
and it made everything curtain. You like, yes, 100%. Mm-hmm.
Were you though familiar, because I am almost 100% sure that one of the biggest parts of Satanic Panic happened in Manhattan Beach at a daycare. Are you familiar with this story?
This rings a bell.
I don't know why it happened there in particular, but there was this huge thing where like little kids at this daycare, toddlers were interviewed and kind of like coerced into claiming that the daycare workers were performing these satanic rituals and like real crazy stuff, like flushing kids down the toilet, which obviously wasn't real. I can't believe this ever became a thing, but it became a national fear-mongering thing where people actually went to prison, and some of them are still in prison, even though like everyone knows this didn't happen. And
what?
Because when you have 40 kids saying somebody's performing these rituals, I guess it becomes believable enough, even if there's no other evidence. And
oh my God.
Like it was, they said they created tunnels and would take these kids down to these tunnels and perform these crazy rituals. And it's obviously not happening, but for a period of time, people believed it and thought it was like an epidemic, that there was all these people in occults and stuff.
To what? For what? Like, what's the end game?
Well, I mean, they said it was the occult, that they were in a
dancing with the devil.
They're making sacrifices to the devil. And so
that you get everything you want and live forever? That's what it's like.
Well,
or what?
I suppose it's in the same way that maybe in the, like the Old Testament when they would do sacrificing of animals and things as an offering to your.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
We're making an offering too.
But believe me, I don't understand any of this. It's bonkers. And it just sort of snowballed. So like you're saying, there was the pop culture side of it. So people had this interest. And I guess it was real enough that they thought maybe it was happening. And then they started to think that it was like pervasive. Like rock music had occult themes,
Oh, gosh. There's no better movie or opening scene than the opening scene to the movie Detroit Rock City. Have you seen this movie?
I don't think so.
Oh, where this church-going mom puts on what she believes is like probably Brian Wilson. And like,
right, yeah.
Which is extra funny if you're a Patreon member and that's the sweatshirt Susie is wearing right now.
Yeah.
And, goes to put on some like calming, soothing album and it's Kiss. And she freaks out and just like loses her mind and, bans her child from ever listening to what she calls Knights in Satan's service. And then she thinks she's like convinced that all the lyrics, it's so great. It's such a great movie. And
like, this is real. Like, and I always talk about it, how we had to watch that documentary at school called Hell's Bells about the danger of like, it was mostly like heavy metal, as if we were listening to that. Yeah. And, it's bizarre. But in the Christian church, there was this guy named Mike Warnke that was very famous who claimed that he had been a high priest in the Church of Satan. Okay. And that they performed all these rituals and all that jazz. And then he, was saved by the blood of Jesus. And he became like a best-selling author of a book about it, but then also like a Christian comedian, which you can imagine what that would be like. Like, have you ever seen a religious comedian?
Nope. Tell me. I've got to... have I seen a religious comedian? I don't know. Do you count?
Every so often, they're not too bad, but they do a lot of, like, content about, like, inside jokes in the church and biblical stories. Like, they'll do jokes about Bible stories.
Could not even imagine. The only jokes that I have about biblical stories are like, come on. Really? That whale?
You're trying to tell me. Yeah. Virgin birth, huh? Right. Yeah. Okay, Mary. Yes. It's not like high caliber. It's not like Dave Chappelle or something. You know what I mean? Right. But anyway, of course, eventually he was exposed as a fraud and he had never been in the Church of Satan or whatever. Then you're familiar, of course, with Anton LaVey, right? The guy that created the Church of Satan, Satanism, right?
Yeah, I am. But not like, I mean, just if I saw his picture and as you kind of tell me, but I don't know his story.
I mean, I don't know his real story. I just know that he was this famous character who Christians were very scared of. And that was part of what was weird about it for me, was there's this sense of it wasn't like they were saying that's crazy, Satanism isn't a thing. They were saying like it is a thing and we should be scared of it. And like kind of like how my mom was afraid of yoga and meditation because it's so powerful that it's like scary rather than or even psychics and stuff like that. It's not that they don't believe in it; they do. They just think you should avoid it, like a Ouija board. Don't you touch that thing?
Yeah,
I'll tell you what you should touch, and that is gorgeous luggage from Base. We both brought Base bags to Chicago, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
The Weekender, amazing.
Love. First of all, you can fit so much in it.
That's what I love
a bag.
It's like Mary Poppins.
Me too. Like, and then they're like, I love being the person who doesn't have everything like spilling out of the bag like crazy. There are very appropriate pockets. And what I love more than anything on a bag, I feel like it looks so classy and makes me feel like so fancy, is a shoe compartment.
Yeah.
The bottom that zips open.
Right.
Shoes are gross.
This changes everything.
Changes everything.
Yes.
Need to put my shoes down there.
Even though I wear them in the house.
It's actually big enough to hold my big old combat boots and a pair of tennies, and it held my dirty laundry.
No, for real. Like, what she's saying is true. It felt like the Mary Poppins carpet bag were like, I can't believe I could fit more stuff in here. Yeah. In the bottom,
quality.
I also put my hair dryer and my makeup and my toiletries. Like, all that crap is separate then. It's just a really high quality bag. They have tons of styles, though, not just the Weekender. They have, roller bags, and they're beautiful colors. And it's just built with great design. Like, did you see on the Weekender how they have the thing where you can put it on a roller bag? Like,
did I see it? Yeah. It's all I used all weekend, and the one time I was like, I'll just put it on top and wheel it. Nope. Whole thing, like this, my suitcase fell over because that's exactly what it's designed for. And I always said, man, I just need one of those bags that has that little
slot.
Hole. So you get like the little slot. Mm-hmm. So, and I felt I can't even tell you how fancy I felt in my long coat, like going through the airport with my wheelie roller that like actually smoothly rolls, and my weekend bag. I felt so fancy.
Their luggage has built-in weight indicators.
Really?
So then you know if your bag's overweight.
Oh!
Which, thank the good Lord or Satan for this episode.
Because, like, man, they are getting every penny they can over there at the old airlines with the overweight luggage.
And their luggage has washable bags for your dirty clothes as well. It's just really practical, and they've thought of everything. And right now, Base is offering our listeners 15% off your first purchase by visiting basetravel.com/braincandy. Go to basetravel.com/braincandy for 15% off your first purchase. That's BEIS travel.com/braincandy. Would make a great gift. I'm just saying.
Oh, yes. Love a good bag.
So then there was all that jazz about Satan and Satanism, and it just, what interests me is the way that these things are important and what they signify. And they are a way that people deal with their fears about lots of things, like mainly social structures. Like, there's always like a gay element where they are afraid of like the destruction of the nuclear family. Women are going, this was in the 80s, like more women were working outside the home. There was AIDS. There was a lot of things that made them feel like this world is going to hell in a handbasket, so to speak. And it's because of Satan and all this rock music, and they're corrupting our children, and they're doing all this.
Is this one of those situations of, like, we've talked about how when you feel anxious, your mind, and there's no lion chasing you, you still need to attach it to something. Mm-hmm. So all that fear and anxiety, you look around your environment and go, I know it must be this. We've kind of like joked, like, I know it must be somebody's mad at me. And like, let me go through what somebody's mad at me for. Is this kind of similar to that, of just like a projection of fears and
I think also there's an element of just that fear that you have of the other, like exploiting our evolutionary, how our brains aren't caught up to life now. And so there's this thing where we're afraid of the other because it served our survival at one time. But now that means that we're kind of afraid of the gay agenda or like women taking too much power from their husbands or whatever. Like that's part of the witch stuff.
The only thing I see in the actual gay agenda is like better hygiene for men, like nicer interior spaces, like, and a decent glass of wine. I'm for that. This is also Sarah's agenda.
But any of those fears, like of the other, can be really destructive. And then there was also like, they started putting kidnapped kids' pictures on the milk cartons and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think there was, even though there was less kidnappings, there was more awareness of missing children. And so there was just like this fear, basically. Mm-hmm. And so this article was actually trying to connect the dots of how we don't have this specific narrow version of it now, but we have other ones. There's conspiracy theories now about even like Pizzagate. Like, they're
I was thinking the same.
And
that's what I was thinking. And why is that such a common like theme where we're taking kids, it's some sort of blood ritual, and it's for like everlasting youth, something like that,
right? And
this is like since the dawn of time. I feel like we've had this. Like,
yeah, and like they pointed out how even though they'll say like #save the children or whatever, they use these sort of like seemingly good messages. But then, you know, in the daycare incidents where the kids like were being interrogated, and if the kids didn't say the thing, they would be pressured over time into saying what's
really traumatic.
So it's like nobody's actually even listening to these kids.
Right.
It's more the adults having these fears and not knowing what to do. So as a result, I couldn't listen to Pink Floyd is what happened.
Really? Like, Pink Floyd was the one that was...
That was a big one. You know that one, the brick in the wall one? Mm-hmm. For some reason, that was in Hell's Bells a lot. We don't need no education. Now I feel like that's their whole message. Is that they don't want it. So I don't know what happened there. But at the time, that was like a real scary thing. Just how like the kids were going to be terrible and zombies and whatever.
Man. It just seems there really is this. Okay. You know, so much of what you've kind of talked to me about or showed me about religion, and even you go and visit a church or cathedral in Europe and you kind of feel this, that you're very powerless. The power is in, like, if you just kind of give up your power to those who are in higher places than you, then you'll be okay. That there would always be this fear that there is another...
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
And I totally forgot that it said this in the article, but it said, some expert said that people that are drawn to conspiracy theories are often the people who want, like, to not have to think about it.
Yeah.
Like
they don't
somebody
want to be the one
else
because they're not,
has told them this and that settles it.
Yeah.
And
they're
never
not
thought about that.
asking why.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, now I get it. It's all sorted already. Somebody figured it out. And for some reason, it provides them some relief. I don't get that part, but...
That's really interesting. I wonder what creates that. Because really it's like a curiosity or a critical thinking. Like... That's got to be what makes you go, but why? You know, I think that seems like very like a big part of human nature. You know, when kids go through that stage where they're just like, why?
I never grew out of that.
Yeah, I know.
Honestly.
It's great.
Yeah.
What were the answers that you received as a child when you like? If you can think back to maybe asking that and imagine how your mom would respond to it.
Well, that was why. Yeah, my brother always talks about that. How like when she would lay down these rules that seemed totally unfair, and we would question them, it was like, well, sort of like, don't blame me, it's God. God told us to do this. So how in the heck am I going to negotiate with God? He sort of has the upper hand.
Oh, yeah.
And so it does take the pressure off her because it's like, I didn't say don't have sex before marriage. God did.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
And what the unintended consequence of that may be is losing a little bit of autonomy and like the power, like even maybe for the person using those kind of phrases.
But there's probably some relief. You know how like
100%.
You don't have to think
freedom.
About it. Yeah.
Sorry if you hear a bunch of weird, spooky scraping noises that seem very 666 episode appropriate. It's super windy today, and the dead tree right in front, not dead, the fall tree, no leaves on it, is scraping against the window.
That is spooky.
It sounds like somebody's hook, like dragging across the car. Ooh, urban legend.
I'll tell you what is not an urban legend, but is legendary, and that is the service of Trumi Wireless. Hello.
Heck yeah. This is how you protect those kitties from crazy people, places, and things online, because there's so many of them.
If you're like, I don't want my kid listening to that satanic music, we
have the solution for you.
Well, because the actual truth is we were afraid of all that stuff unnecessarily, but now there actually are threats, which is pretty much joke. The entire really internet. And Trumi has a phone that makes it safe for kids, so they aren't exposed to a freaking porn or predators or bullies. And you, as the parent, are in control. And you have a portal where you decide what they're able to do, when they're able to do it, what apps they're able to use. And the apps that Trumi has are all vetted and safe, and you can have peace of mind. Because it can be very overwhelming. And let me tell you, there's not a lot of good options.
No, there aren't. And it's hard to, go through all those setting things yourself and just delete. No. And the kids find the workarounds.
Yep, that's true. And this just makes you feel like, okay, they can have the fun because you want them to be able to have the fun stuff and to play the games and do whatever. But then, they're not going to be looking at weirdness or being approached by weirdos. And it can help them with their schoolwork. A lot of stuff now requires technology. So you have to go in and handle it. And our friend Modern Dad is the one that it helped us with this because we love him. And that's how we became familiar with Trumi. They have a deal for our listeners, which I'm so thankful for. Trumi.com/braincandy. If you use code CANDY, you'll get $75 off the purchase of any Trumi device. That's code CANDY for $75 off the purchase of any Trumi device. They're really high quality, too. Like, your kid's not going to destroy it. And they're just such a great option, and you will love them.
And you know what? I took a look at that. They look like, they're not like the phones that look like toy phones. Or like little, that the kids are like, I don't want to use that because that, yes. This is like all the features. Like, you get the camera action and all the stuff they want. But,
without like
the worry.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And then, let me wrap up this Satanic Panic. Oh yeah, even Dungeons and Dragons. Like, my mom was super weird about that. Now it's like
just the name, right? It's like that's what all those kids probably do now.
Well, and if I said to her like, "How do you play Dungeons and Dragons?" she would not know. Right. There would be no answer. But something, it must have been the name or whatever.
Who is the decider? Like, who is it? One mom who then uses the phone tree,
and then the prayer chain,
the prayer chain. What happens that we've all decided the same ones? It's like it's like what we talked about, child lore, but this is like
Christian lore,
mom lore.
Yeah, mom lore. Well, and then one of the biggest people involved in spreading this was Jerry Falwell Sr., who started the Moral Majority and founded Liberty University. And he was the guy who, after 9/11, said that 9/11 happened because of like gay people and feminists and stuff.
Oh, God.
But this leads me to my next topic, which is the God Forbid documentary on Hulu about Jerry Falwell Jr. So Jerry Falwell Sr. was the one that started the Moral Majority and Liberty University. Jerry Falwell Jr. Was running Liberty University, and he has always been like very involved in everything, but he's not a pastor. Like, he never got ordained. He was more of a business guy, and they credited him with bringing the university out of debt and making like billions of dollars. And he got caught in a freaking awesome scandal a couple years ago, and it like slowly trickled in the info, and I was like, it was delicious.
Ah, yes. Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss, because the only thing that I don't care what you're doing in your bedroom. I do not. You have a grand old time. Bring whoever in there that you want. What is delicious is the hypocrisy. Because if you go to Liberty University, they have a handbook called the Liberty Way. And the Liberty Way fines people and punishes people for swearing, drinking, being in the room with a person of the opposite sex.
God, I would owe so much money at the end of the semester.
Like, you cannot be in a room with a boy alone.
So dumb.
Period. Even if you're praying or whatever. And so this guy was, his wife and he were in Florida, and she spotted this 20-year-old pool attendant, or as he became known, the pool boy. And she,
my God,
propositioned him and was like, come back to my hotel room. And he was like, okay. And she was like, one thing though, my husband has to watch. And so they were kinking it up, man.
Into the whole cuckolding thing.
Yep. Jerry Falwell Jr. is allegedly a cuckold. And this is, at the same time, not okay. So the handbook, Liberty Way, that's all a problem. The hypocrisy is disgusting. But we have since learned the ways that culture made it so that women who were assaulted at Liberty one woman came forward, and instead of punishing her rapist, they punished her for drinking. Right? So this is a way that we can penalize women just, instead of holding their male counterparts accountable for, their crimes, their actual felonies.
Because I bet in that handbook it didn't say don't sexually assault.
You're not allowed to have sex. That's true. You're not allowed to have sex. But I'm sure that they don't mention specifically that.
Yeah.
So anyway, this poor guy, and I think because his name is, let me look up. His name is John Carlos Granda. The book I just read is called Off the Deep End. It's about the same thing, but the documentary is called God Forbid. I think because he had a Cuban name or a Latin name, and he was a pool boy, there was this sort of perception that he's just like,
right.
I don't know.
That character from the Birdcage.
I don't know what
Frank Azaria's character, however you say his name.
And that they're like kinking it up with this guy, but that he's like he has no agency of his own. He's just sort of like this accessory to nonsense. But he's like a nice guy whose life basically was ruined by this. And they roped him into all these crazy business deals. Like they went into business with him. This is the craziest part of it, Sarah, is that it's one thing if you just want to bang the pool boy and your husband watches. She became his girlfriend. Like, she would talk to him for an hour a day and say, I love you and stuff. And she's a 40-something-year-old or 50-something-year-old woman with kids the same age as the pool boy. And she's telling this guy
this feels really gross and this feels controlling and like...
And when the pool boy wouldn't write back enough, like fast enough, Jerry would then text and be like, my wife is crying because you haven't texted her back. It's like cuckoo crazy.
What?
Right?
That is...
Can you imagine?
That is... Nope, not when
I've
you're...
never heard of
not when
anything
you're
like
living that. Not when you're living such double lives. Like that. That's got to do something for the psyche.
Where you're like two people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do not do well when we present one way to the world and live another way. Like our personal identity and social identity are so in conflict.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a really not so peaceful existence.
Yeah.
And makes you do a lot of judging of others.
I mean, the kinky stuff is what grabs your attention. Mm-hmm. But really the important part is that Jerry and his wife's relationship with this man ultimately became known to Trump's fixer, Michael Cohen.
Oh, wow.
And allegedly was used as a way to secure Jerry Falwell's endorsement of Trump in 2016.
What?
And then because Jerry Falwell endorsed Trump, all the evangelicals are like, oh, I guess we're voting for Trump. And then he became president. So like this tryst and cuckolding became consequential on a global level. And that is just insane to me. So
holy crap.
It's really not a small thing.
One couple's kink
brought down a nation.
Yeah.
No offense to my sister Renee, who is listening and
divided
disagrees with me. I'm just reporting the facts here of what happened. Yes. Anyway, it's like, yeah, he had to resign and stuff, but they're gazillionaires and like,
yeah,
their
really,
life is
it's like,
fine.
okay, so yeah, right. Nothing really happens.
You should watch the doc though. It is scandalous.
I will. I really love a good, like the old toe tapping guy, the guy who like hated the gays and then was caught in a bathroom, like tapping his toe under the stall,
yes.
and then was like giving BJs and like, yeah,
you love a self-loather.
Love one of those stories.
Yeah, there's a fair number of those because
that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, and especially because Jerry Falwell Sr. was the guy who basically decried gay marriage and basically what they considered to be sexual perversion. Well, tell it to the pool boy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'd tell to the pool boy.
I'm rubber, you're glue, or whatever I say.
I don't have a good segue, but Everlywell doesn't need an amazing segue. They just are amazing.
Regardless. They are amazing. And we can say, if you want the truth and real answer.
Yeah. Everlywell is an amazing company that provides at-home lab tests. It sounds so fancy, but it's so easy. You just get a teeny bit on from your finger, send it off, and a couple days later you find out if you have like food sensitivities and what they are. You can find out, you can do a celiac disease screening test, the women's health option. They have a metabolism option. And I love doing it because I find it really empowering to know what's cooking in my body, which otherwise if you went to the doctor, it takes forever. It's expensive.
And it's like getting pieces of the puzzle that help paint a full picture or like create a full picture of what your health is.
Yes. And I know people start thinking about that around the holidays because they're thinking about the next year. And so this would be a great stocking stuffer. You could put one of their tests in there for your family members. They can find out what they got going on and help their health goals.
And kind of nice to do it with the family members because sometimes you can just be like, oh, I have the same symptoms? Yes, probably the same thing. So kind of like 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah, right.
We're close enough genetically. We're probably the same.
The gift of health has never been so easy to share than it is this holiday for listeners of the show. Everlywell is offering a discount of 20% off an at-home lab test at everlywell.com/braincandy. That's everlywell.com/braincandy for 20% off your next at-home lab test, everlywell.com/braincandy. You reminded me when you said that about family members. You know how I'm obsessed with the ABCs of skin cancer?
I do.
You know, and I'm always like telling people to go get checked. And, you know, every year you should do a scan at the dermatologist, see if there's any new moles or whatever. And my family's into this. And so my mom had found like a little, she calls it a splinter, like a tiny little splinter on her shoulder. But anytime it would like, because it's under the bra strap, so you know how sometimes they knock it off and then it would fall off.
Yeah.
But then it would come back, and she thought that was weird that it would come back. So she got it tested, and it turned out it was skin cancer. A teeny tiny thing.
Well, good.
So they dig it out, and you're good as new as long as you catch it early, and they can eliminate it. And thankfully, they did. Which basically means I'm doomed because both of my parents had skin cancer. I mean, we're a very white family.
Yeah, you could just. But you're doing your due diligence.
Yeah. So just as a reminder, if you were waiting for like a sign, this is your sign to check your skin. Anything that seems funky, check those ABCs.
Or tag us in your photos on Instagram.
Sometimes I hope Lincoln becomes a dermatologist so I can hear about like the crazy skin shit
that would
people
be the
have.
Best.
Wouldn't it? Yeah. He loves a good skin anomaly. I know that. He's inherited this interest.
This is good. I'm gonna do what I can to plant some seeds.
Hey, I forgot to tell you, and I bet you didn't listen to it. Adam wrote and recorded and sang a theme song for my old gossip segments.
Oh my God!
You will die when you hear it.
I cannot wait to hear it.
And I'm going to
go back to the last episode where we did it
last Thursday. I think I forget.
Yeah,
I'll have to send you the clip though because it is a riot. This song.
Oh God, I can't wait to hear that.
Lyrics and music by Adam Butler. Anyway,
so good.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about is. Well, you should also watch the documentary on Netflix called Killer Sally.
Oh, I have heard this from multiple people now.
That was really good. I won't talk about it too much, but it was just about this bodybuilder woman who was married to a bodybuilder man, and she killed him. And it was just a discussion about what happened there. And it's cool because it's a subculture that I'm not really familiar with, that bodybuilding world. And boy, is it fascinating. You know, just those ladies and their strange, like, body types in comparison to what, like, women are sort of encouraged to look like and how they just go a different way and what that means. So it's really good.
There's part of me that, and I would have to understand, like, intention.
Oh, like why they're doing it? Yeah.
But sometimes some of the massive bodybuilding stuff can lean a little on body dysmorphia.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know how what is it, Thomas Jefferson or whoever or Ben Franklin, I think, like everything in moderation, including moderation. I mean, it's just true. Like anytime someone does an extreme thing, I'm always like wanting them to curb their enthusiasm. Like let's tone it down a little bit. That's a little
create some balance.
Okay, so watch that if you're interested. It's really good. Okay, this do you want to hear? All right, this was in the Atlantic, and it was just about like I don't know, just how much we share and how like social media.
I saved this, and I was going to
really
send it to you. Is it on sharing and boundaries? And like,
did you read it?
I didn't because I just like pinned it. Like I want to read this later, kind of thing.
Yes.
But just the headline caught me and made me think about you.
Why did it?
Because you were always like, why are they? I was listening to one of our early episodes.
Yeah.
For Wait, Don't Tell Me, or not Wait, Don't Tell Me, for things we got wrong.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how you were saying, like, what is that with people who overshare on, like,
I mean, I love it when people do because it's so cringy and great. Like mainly when they're going through a divorce or something like that, it's the best. I cannot get enough of it.
I always know when the Tinder profiles are ones of people who just recently
what do they say?
Divorce. Oh, they're so good. They're always like, I do not want anyone who they're very like sure of what they don't want, which is a list of who their ex was. And it's
I love that. And this was sort of talking about how historically there have been like concrete rules about etiquette, in that, like, let's say, you remember how there used to be, like, let's say you don't go, you go to a wedding. How do you have to bring the present to the wedding or whatever? Right. It used to be like you have a whole year to, and you're still allowed to, like, and then be acceptable. Like, there was all these like official rules, yeah. And then you send a thank you card, and then
right.
And that now things have become very blurry, and it's become very much more about, like, it depends. You know, like, you're supposed to try to judge intention, and, like, did someone do something thoughtfully, or were they inconsiderate? And it's kind of blurry. And what it means is, like, some people share everything, and some people are very private. And then you may put something on Instagram stories, but, like, you don't want your boss to see it, but, like, everything's public. And so there's not these spheres where, like, this is appropriate here, but it is not appropriate here, and you can separate them. Like, everything is all mixed up together. Like, for instance, sometimes when I post to my stories, I might think, like, I hope Sarah sees this. Like, she'll laugh at this. But then some other person will end up seeing it that maybe wouldn't think it's funny. And how, like, usually when you post something, you have maybe an intended audience, but, like...
Right. Like, the joke that you'd make at the company, you know, Christmas party is very different than the joke that you're going to make with your high school friends sitting around the dinner table at your own house.
Yeah. And some people want to hear your dirty secrets, and then other people are just, like, on Instagram because they want cat videos. And next thing you know, that you're disclosing that, like, you have COVID and your butthole's on fire, whatever. It's just might not be welcome.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought it was an interesting conversation because the way that things used to be, where there was, like, more strict rules, also like enabled secrets that were toxic, I felt like.
Yeah, and don't you feel like that's kind of rooted in, like, patriarchal things and, like, a kind of Christian or some sort of, like, religious, like, moral, like, what this reminds me of is a lot of, like, those cotillion kind of rules, like this is how it feels very white and waspy to me.
Well, and how, like, it pointed out how if you and I were to talk about something sexual, it wouldn't be as offensive, seen as offensive as, like, if a gay person shared the details of their sex life, because there's still weird stigmas and stuff that are not put on the quote unquote norm, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, sure, whiteness, maleness, heteronormativity, it's all treated differently.
Totally.
And there's, like, different rules depending on which group you're in.
Yeah, you guys aren't allowed to share this, but these kind of people. Oh, we talked about it in the last episode. I feel like grabbing your crotch is an example.
Exactly.
You know?
Right? Like, it's one thing
touching
for a
your
man
genitals.
to do it.
Men, allowed to. It's normal. I'm adjusting myself. If I had adjusted my boobs, just stuck my hand on my shirt and, like, or just adjusted them, people are like, what are you doing groping yourself?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing groping yourself?
It was pointing out, like, how even, like, these things, there's a moving target, because even when postcards were invented, they were seen as, like, oh no, this could be an invitation of being too casual with people. Like, postcards.
Because we got rid of letters. Oh.
And I thought it was so funny because in the same paragraph where it mentions postcards, and then it immediately goes into reality TV and talk shows of, like, and we started disclosing these our private lives on television. I'm like, wow, postcards to, like, the real world.
TV. Right. Right. I feel like there's this, it took me a while to learn that because a lot of my life was shared and was open and on display or whatevs, that I then had to continue to share all those things with new people that came into my life. Like, I owed it to them, or in some way, because other people had access to this information, now they get to too. And it took me a while to realize, no, just because I said it on TV then does not mean that I have to let everybody know about it now.
Yeah. Do you think that I mean, generally, don't you think people enjoy your particular approach to self? Like, you reveal a lot about yourself. And I think it's great, but like, do you think other people are like, oh, keep it to yourself, lady?
I think it's in certain groups. Like, it's more with like intimate relationships and close relationships. Like, where I letting people know about things that happen to you that affect maybe how you are in a relationship.
Yeah. Like, you don't have to keep announcing
disclosure.
It. Yeah.
Yeah. And you also don't have to let people know of details that are not comfortable for anybody to hear.
Mm-hmm. And maybe you were fine sharing the details 10 years ago with a certain group, but you might not be now with this person.
And now it feels like I'm more aware of like secondary traumatization of like what happens when you tell somebody about things that aren't good.
You can feel too exposed sometimes.
Yeah, and then it's also not fair to them. It feels like dumping it on them, which I now recognize is not fair to do to somebody who, maybe isn't ready to hear whatever that is, or I think maybe there's a part of me that would like do it not for shock value, but because it's all truth, but to maybe make up for, or like to get some of like that comfort and recognition for how shitty it was that I didn't get back when shitty things were happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I think like, oh, I know, maybe if somebody really understands now, it'll make up for people not understanding before, but that's not how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're probably the wrong people to even talk about it, because we're obviously in a group of people that are more open to sharing than maybe a typical human being. So
probably.
I would be interested.
But maybe in different categories. I don't know. Maybe not.
You think, well, people really do like talking about themselves. I know that.
They do. And they're okay with sharing. I think also, like, maybe you and I open the door to that kind of, because we do it, then we encourage other people to.
Well, and I ask inappropriate questions.
Which I love.
I know that definitely is not always welcomed. But I can't resist. I have a natural curiosity.
I know. It's so funny. It's good for a laugh.
There was a great New York Times it was a video. It wasn't a documentary. It was just like a video story. And it was about stuttering.
Oh.
And it was about the people who have a stutter. Of those people, 20% of them never lose it. They take it into adulthood. And the video was so great because they said there's this machine, and that the machine can remove all three of the types of stuttering, which I'm going to forget what they are, but one is like blocks where you like can't get anything out.
Can't get it out.
Prolongations are when the middle of the word is extended. Mm-hmm. And then there's another one that's where you can't use the first part of the word is bup.
Yeah.
And this machine will remove them all. So they had this guy on who is a stutterer, and they had him call one of those things that's voice activated, where they'd be like, who do you want to talk to? Do you want to talk to the pharmacy or the front desk or whatever?
Those are difficult for me without a stutter.
And before he could even say a syllable, it would be like, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. And you felt how he must feel. Yeah. And then they removed all of the different types of stuttering from his speech and had him talk about what it's like to have a stutter. So now you're watching a guy who seems just like us, just regular talking. And then at the end of the video, they said, like, this machine doesn't exist, that the thing that could remove that awkwardness is you, the listener, that you just sit there and don't finish their sentence. Don't guess what they're going to say. Don't coach them and say, just breathe, just relax. It all makes it worse.
Yeah.
And you just sit there. I even noticed this with Adam. My husband doesn't have a stutter, but he is dyslexic, and he is much slower to speak than me or Sarah or most people. And people are impatient. And as a result, he almost never gets to speak when we're out because he cannot get a word in. And when he does start to talk, it's at a slower pace than people are used to. And they just zone out and move on. So I can only imagine what it's like for a stutterer, you know?
Yeah.
Because it really sucks,
Yeah.
you know, to be that person, to feel like you're not being listened to. And imagine like the job prospects for somebody who goes in for an interview. Their resume is great, but then they have that stilting cadence. And we have no patience. Really hard.
It's terrible. We need more, and it needs to be something that, you know, I think, you know, so much representation matters. And the way people with stutters are often represented in media is like that it somehow affects your intellectual capacity or abilities, which is not the case at all. And so it's like education, exposure, and people need this to all kinds of people.
Even I remember when that happened with Biden.
Process things in a different way. Yeah.
Because he used to have a stutter, and sometimes it still emerges, and there was like a lot of discussion about that, I remember, during the campaign period. But yeah, for 20% of them, I mean, that's not going away. That's just something they have to live with.
Yeah.
It was a great illustration, though. I really liked watching it.
Sounds like a good one.
So that's my story.
A good reminder to people to have that kind of patience.
Yeah, zip it, donkeys.
It's okay. Slow down. Maybe it's just like a good reminder for all of us to just slow down.
Just let people finish.
Yeah.
Take their time. Let's wind it down.
I'm like classic interrupter, so I
work
on that every day.
You say ADHD makes you like where you guess.
I mean, yeah, like I get impulsive about.
So what will you do? In your brain, you'll do what?
I don't know. I just interrupt people a lot.
Oh, okay. So that I see. That's different.
But I also think I think my brain does guess what they're going to say next, or guess what. Like, try not to finish people's sentences.
Well, we can all improve, can't we?
Yeah.
I hope this was satanic enough for all of you.
Spooky.
I mean,
even after Halloween.
There was
Satanic Panic, man.
There's a great documentary. I think it's called Hell, and it's about Satanism, and it did a good job of showing how like most people that are associated with that are doing it as sort of like a statement against like religion and mixed with government. It's not really like they're worshiping.
Isn't that was my understanding of what the Church of Satan guy was doing too, of like to point out that, okay, fine, if you get tax break for this, then we're a church, now we get a tax break, and we're just going to hang out and like.
And if you put the 10 Commandments at the city hall, then you got to put like this fucking whatever Satan porn or something. I don't know what they did.
I like when they try to do those kind of things. I'm like, yeah, I'm for that.
But yeah, I mean, Satanic Panic's not really gone. It's just changed into a different panic. That it doesn't rhyme, so it's not as catchy.
Yeah. Now, and is it always just a resurgence of this around Halloween in this time of year? It feels like
probably all you witches get out your sage and your blood vials or whatever you have.
All of a sudden, the evangelical Christians are like, "Oh no,
she's back!
She's back!"
And then Jerry Falwell, he takes the edge off by like watching his wife get pounded.
Oh my god!
And brings down
the pool boy.
By the poor
brings down the US of A.
And then TMI. I love a conversation about TMI and how culture changes. I will say, maybe not in regards to TMI, but I do wish that we had more formality still. Like, I wish people got dressed up for stuff. Or
I do too.
Like, there's so many, like...
I really think that the airplane thing messed us up.
Where people started wearing their jammies?
Well, yeah, but you had to, because the airplanes started becoming so uncomfortable. When they, like, there's... people right now are fighting to make a new FAA regulation that has a minimum seat space.
Yeah.
Because there were some research that was done saying that, having people crammed into such small spaces increases tension and aggression and frustration and things like that. So some of like the things that are happening on planes could be a result of that. And right now, the only regulations they have, or only requirements or rules, says you have to be able to exit the plane within 90 seconds from wherever you're seated. But besides that, there's nothing that says how small of a seat you need.
It's infuriating.
Super infuriating. Come on.
Basically, once planes got deregulated, everything went to hell.
Yeah, and now nobody dresses up for anything.
Yeah, man. For anything, even at church, they're like, whoo, they're wearing like, jammies.
And COVID didn't help either.
COVID didn't help anything.
Right.
All right, let's move on.
That may be my baking skills.
Yeah, that's true. It did help sourdough production.
Yeah, it did.
All right, people. We'll see you next time. Thanks for always supporting us and using our codes and checking out our merch and being a patron.
And thank you so much for your amazing reviews you guys are leaving.
Yes, we love you.
We love you. Those 5-star reviews mean the world to much. We read every single one. So thank you.
I love you.
Bye.